Students, in the past lectures we have learned how to handle with electrical capacitors when they are connected in series and as well as parallel. And we have even learned that when two or more capacitors are connected in combination, if you are able to identify how many resistors, how many capacitors are connected in series and how many are connected in parallel, then you can reduce that circuit into a simpler form, and you can find out the effective capacitance, and from there you can find out charge transferred, heat produced, and work done by the battery. Everything can be calculated once if you are able to find out equivalent capacitance. And today we are going to discuss about few more problems based on the same concepts. As a part of that, today we have one problem which is displayed on the screen. You have infinite number of capacitors here. Infinite number of capacitors are connected in between A and B. This is point A and this is point B. Infinite number of capacitors are connected, and you could not exactly tell how many capacitors are connected in series and how many capacitors are connected in parallel. You cannot exactly tell that. It seems to be like two capacitors are in parallel and two capacitors are in series, but that's not exactly right, because there are infinite number of capacitors. You need to now find out the effective capacitance of the whole circuit in between A and B. You should find out C equivalent, and this is in between A and B. You should find out effective capacitance in between A and B. This is the region where A and B is present. I want to now find out the effective capacitance of these all capacitors. As we know, when capacitors are connected here, in this case, there are infinite number of capacitors. Definitely, when you are connecting two or more capacitors, you will be getting some equivalent capacitance, right? Now, what I will imagine is, I'll consider this total part, like from here, this total part, which I marked with red ink. This total part effective capacitance, I will consider it as some C naught. Okay, so I'll consider, like, because there are infinite number of capacitors here. As infinite number of capacitors are there, and you do not exactly expect which are connected in series and which are connected in parallel, so I am assuming that the effective capacitance of these all infinite number of capacitors is a C naught. Okay, so like that, many number of capacitors are present within the circuit, out of which this total, only the part which I have marked with red ink, the effective capacitance of that all, I am considering it as a C naught. Okay, so if I consider that as a C naught, I can redraw the circuit into a simpler form. Like, I'll redraw the circuit now into a simpler form. This is point A and this is point B, and here you have one capacitor, and here you have one more capacitor. This is point A and this is point B, and the remaining total I am considering it as C naught. This is effective capacitance of the remaining circuit, and this I am considering it as C naught. Its capacity is C and its capacity is C. Okay, now I name, like here already it is been denoted that this point is D and this point is E. Okay, now as the total effective capacitance of the infinite number of capacitors which are connected in the circuit, I am considering it as C naught. That C naught is a very large value, so you should note that as C naught is effective capacitance of infinite number of capacitors. Infinite number of capacitors, C naught value is greater than C. So C is very simple, like it is one capacitor, and C naught value, the effective capacitance is much greater than that of the C value. Okay, so this is very important note you should understand. Now I'll find out effective capacitance. So before finding that effective capacitance, I'll take this DE part. So first I'll find out effective capacitance of DE portion. Okay, this is point D and this is point E. CDE, C effective. In between the points D and E, how is the C naught connected to C? C naught is connected in parallel with C. Therefore, C effective DE is equal to C plus C naught because it is parallel. Okay, this is parallel combination. And what is now this circuit can be reduced as it is point A and this is C, and you have one more capacitance here. This is A and this is B. Of course, this is capacity C, and the CDE we have already calculated it as C plus C naught. And how is C and C plus C naught connected? C and C plus is connected in series. So CAB effective is equal to C into C plus C naught divided by C plus C naught, because they are connected in series combination. Okay, this is the combination. Like here I am finding CAB, C and C plus C naught is connected in series combination. So therefore effective capacitance is C1 C2 divided by C1 plus C2. I am substituting that here. Now here, as I already noted that when C naught is the effective capacitance of many capacitors, C naught value is greater than C. As C naught value is much greater than C, you can simply write down one approximation like C naught plus X is approximately equal to C naught. For example, 1000, C naught is equal to 1000. X is equal to 0.1. Now you are adding, for 1000 you are adding 0.1. It will be 1000.1, and that is approximately equal to C naught. Similarly, C naught is very large value. For that you are adding one small capacitor, like it is you are adding some Y, so that approximately it become equal to C naught. Okay, this is the logic you need to use in this problem also. Okay, so as C plus C naught is very large value, as C plus C naught is greater than C, CAB effective. That means if you are finding effective capacitance of this total, and this should be equal to C naught. Okay, this is approximately equal to C naught, right? So I'll use this now. I'll use that concept now. So CAB, I'm just writing it as a C naught. CAB, I will write it as C naught. C naught is equal to C square plus C naught divided by 2C plus C naught. No, it is C naught. Okay, now bring this term to the other side. 2C naught plus C naught square, plus what is left over here, this is equal to C square plus C naught. Okay, now 2C naught and one more C naught is here, that comes over the other side. 2C naught minus C naught will be equal to C naught. C naught plus C naught square minus C square is equal to 0, right? This is in the form of a quadratic expression. Okay, that is in the form of quadratic expression. This quadratic expression you need to solve. So if you solve this quadratic expression, you will be getting roots for C naught. That is the final answer for C naught in terms of C. You will be getting answer in terms of C with by solving that effective quadratic expression. So taking this quadratic expression, I am solving that. It is in the form of ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Now from there you are finding root for x is minus b plus or minus under root b square minus 4ac by 2a. Substituting that over there, you will be getting two values for C0. One is positive and the other one is negative. Positive value you need to take as the final expression. Negative value you can eliminate it. Taking that positive value, you will be getting C0 value. So C0 is the effective capacitance, approximate effective capacitance in between A and B. So if for C0 you can add any value, like it can be X or it can be Y, definitely you will be getting the nearest approximate value which is equal to C0. So final answer will be equal to C0, and that C0 can be -1 plus root 5 into C divided by 2. This is the approximate answer for effective capacitance of the infinite number of capacitors connected in this problem. When we are dealing with capacitors, sometimes you are unable to tell how many capacitors are connected in series and how many are connected in parallel. In such cases, you cannot reduce that circuit to a simpler form. Then in order to solve such type of problems, we will be using Kirchhoff laws to handle with those situations. Kirchhoff law is simply a consequence of conservation of charge. The total charge which is present in the universe, it is neither nor can be created nor be destroyed. It is simply the consequence of conservation of charge. Charge gets transferred from one form to another form. Only that is what we are using in the whole Kirchhoff laws, but it is in the different form. Now see, in this case we have one capacitor, like let me consider this as C1, another capacitor C2, another capacitor C3, another capacitor C4. We have different capacitors here. All those capacitors are connected in the circuit, and this is some part, a part of large circuit. This is a part of very big circuit. From that I am taking very small part where this point where many wires are joined. So at this point there are many number of wires which are being joined. Like here there is a combination of two wires, right? This is one and this is the other one. You have two combinations. Similarly, you can take one more capacitor here, like it can have value C5. Now there are three wires which are being joined, and this point is called as nodal point, or you can call it as a junction. Okay, this point is called as a nodal point or a junction. If you are dealing with a circuit, very complicated circuit, you need to identify those points which are called as nodal points or junction. A junction is that where more than two number of wires are meeting. Such point is called as a junction point or a nodal point. So Kirchhoff first law deals with these nodal points or junction points. That is the reason why Kirchhoff first law is also called as nodal law or junction law. What does it states is you have three different wires, number 1, number 2 and number 3. Okay, from first wire there will be some charge transferring. I am considering it as Q1. From second wire there is some charge transferring Q2, and from third wire there is some charge transferring Q3. Q1, Q2, Q3 are different paths from which charge is being transferred. From different paths charges are being transferred, Q1, Q2, Q3 to this nodal point. Now after coming to this nodal point, they get reshuffled, and finally when they are coming out from the junction, there are only two paths over here, and those two paths, from those two paths some charge Q4 comes from here and Q5 comes from here. Now mathematically it can be written as charges which are entering into this nodal point is numerically equal to charges which are coming out from the nodal point. For example, as a whole, from this first three wires, if 100 coulomb of charge comes to the nodal point, then 100 coulomb of charge should definitely go out from the nodal point. There is no net charge present at the nodal point. So that is what summation over Q net is equal to 0. Or the total charge which is coming over to the nodal point is equal to total charge leaving from the nodal point. So simply I will be writing it as Q1 plus Q2 plus Q3 is equal to Q4 plus Q5. Now I can write simply Q1 plus Q2 plus Q3 minus Q4 minus Q5 is equal to 0. So net charge at the nodal point is equal to 0. Total charge is being conserved. This is what Kirchhoff first law states, and it is applicable only at the nodal points or junction points. The point where more than 2 or more wires are joined, it is said to be as a nodal point. Now whenever charges are coming to that nodal point, total charges entering into the nodal point should be definitely equal to total charges leaving from that nodal point, which is consequence of a conservation of charge. Similarly, now if this is divided with time, Q1 by 2, Q2 by T, and divided by time. So everywhere if I divide it with time, this will be equal to I1, charge by time is current, plus I2 plus I3 is equal to I4 plus I5. So as current is nothing but rate of transfer of charge, so therefore Q by T can be simply written as current. Therefore it is also called as Kirchhoff's current law. And current law is also the consequence of conservation of charge. What does it state? Net current entering into the nodal point is equal to net current leaving from the nodal point. So total current coming over here will be equal to total current leaving from the junction, or net current at the nodal point will be equal to 0. That is what I1 plus I2 plus I3 is equal to 0 in this example. This is very simple law, and it is very simple and most important law which we will be dealing to solve problems. Very complicated circuits can be solved from these Kirchhoff laws. Coming to Kirchhoff voltage law, it is applicable for loops, as I told you. Closed path for circuit is nothing but called as a loop. Now let me consider in this circuit, you have one source. This is battery. Battery is nothing but potential source, right? Here there is some potential source and its potential is equal to V. Now here these all B, C, D, E, F, these all are different consumers. These can be resistors, these can be capacitors, these can be bulbs, these can be fans, any consumers it can be. The total voltage which you are supplying within this closed loop will be definitely dropped across first consumer, second one, third one, and fourth one, and as well as fifth one. So simply you can write it as voltage supplied to the loop is equal to voltage dropped across the components in the loop, right? So it's very simple statement. Total voltage, like for a closed loop, you need to identify which are suppliers and which are consumers. Total voltage which are being supplied over there will be equal to mathematically total voltage dropped across all the capacitors, all the resistors, or all the consumers. So I'll write down that as total voltage supplied is equal to V. I'm considering this voltage source as V. So its potential supplied is V, and that is numerically equal to voltage dropped across all these components. Voltage dropped across this component, I consider it as V1, it has V2, it has V3, it has V4, and it has V5. So voltage supplied will be equal to voltage dropped across all the components. It is V1 plus V2 plus V3 plus V4, or I can simply write it as V minus V1 minus V2 minus V3 minus V4 is equal to 0. That means net voltage within the closed loop is equal to 0. This is what Kirchhoff voltage law or loop law states. It is also called as loop law because it is applicable only for loops. First law is applicable at junctions. Second law is applicable at loops. In the first law, charge is being conserved, and in the second law, voltage is being conserved. Like total voltage supplied will be equal to total voltage dropped across all the components in the circuit. Before solving problems, you need to learn these sign conventions when we are dealing with this voltage law. So according to sign convention, it is that when charge is flowing from positive to negative, you should write it as minus V. When charge is flowing from minus to positive, like negative sign to positive sign, then in such cases, you should write it as plus V. Similarly, if charge is flowing from positive plate to negative plate of the capacitor, you should write it as minus Q by C. It means that voltage is dropped. Similarly, when it is going from negative to positive sign, from negative plate to positive plate, in such case, if the path is this way, then you need to take it as plus Q by C. It means that voltage is been added over there. These are simple sign conventions we will be using in order to use loop law in solving problems.